What up, big dogs? I'm your host, Coach Craig, and this is Athletes Unleashed. On today's episode, my guest is a high school softball player in her senior year. We discuss falling back in love with her sport, the difficulties of playing through constant injuries, her goals to play softball at the next level, and the realities of the end of her career after college. Please enjoy my conversation with Kaylee Rodriguez.
That is, and you get the D1 title. I mean, the D1 title doesn't matter, but like...
Yeah, it does for some people.
Yeah,
But it's tough because you're always... For me, I guess we can talk about that. I see a ton of softball players signing for college, so I don't know if softball is like an easy way to go.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's just... If you see all the girls going D1, like, a lot of them don't play. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of girls I know that, like, they're like, oh, yeah, I'm going D1.
Mhm.
Don't play. Play the bench. And it sucks because it's like, you know, you got all that hype and then it just, like, dies.
Yeah. Well, I think that comes with a lot. I mean, that's something that I've talked to other coaches about, where they encourage players to seek out D2 or lower schools.
Yeah.
Because when you go to D1, it's hyper competitive, and every year they are attempting to recruit over you. So even if you are like a highly touted recruit, the next recruiting class that comes in, they could easily bring somebody in who's even more so playing your position. And I mean, it's going to be competitive. So if you don't perform,
Yeah.
I don't know how it is. I know that's like, it's for soccer. It's obviously I know about it. And this coach was for basketball, and he was telling me obviously the numbers for basketball are much lower.
Yeah.
But I don't even know how many players you usually have on a college softball team. You can only play 9 at a time.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And they carry 30,
really,
40. Yeah, something like that. It's insane. But...
so a lot of people sign to play, but
But they don't play. Yeah, because you
tough.
see, they only start their starting players.
Of course,
And then they put in a pinch runner like twice every
because
game.
college softball games are what, 7 innings.
Yeah.
So even if you're a pinch hitter, pinch runner, the chances of you getting in are pretty low.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know. That's the only reason I wouldn't go D1 if I had the chance to.
Yeah.
You know, it's not worth it. I'd rather get playing time at a lower school.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people that's the case.
And then softball's a dead end sport. Like, I'm not.
Yeah, because
like,
there's no. I mean, there are professional
Yeah,
leagues, but it's not like something you can make a career
Yeah,
out of
exactly.
for the most part.
Yeah, so you focus on your career more than trying to play like high levels. you
Yeah.
know?
So for you, so you're a softball player. Like for you, playing softball and trying to get recruited is more to get an education.
Yeah.
Like you want to play in college, but you know there isn't a future in it
Yeah.
after the fact.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, do you have anywhere you're looking right now where?
Like for softball?
Mm-hmm.
Just New Mexico right now.
Yeah.
Honestly. And
But
it's
you were saying they
D2.
don't really have
Yeah.
academically what you're looking for.
Yeah, unless I would just go for like my undergrad classes and just get those over with and transfer over. That would be the best option if I were to go play.
Mm-hmm.
But I would get like the college like playing experience, you know.
Which is what you want.
I guess, yeah. But then also injuries holds me back.
You're currently injured.
Yeah.
And is it like, well, you can tell me about it, but is it something that's been a consistent injury over a long period of time, or is it getting injured over and over again, different things?
Yeah, it's getting injured over and over because it was my sophomore year was my knee, and then I thought I was out for like ever, and then
What
I
happened
came
with
back.
your knee?
I like had a slight tear in my MCL. Like as a catcher, that's one of those injuries that you can't really. It's like one of those you can't go back to catching type of thing. But
Yeah.
I went back, and then it was my back.
Did you before we get to your back? Did you have your knee repaired?
I was immobilized for 6 months maybe, and then therapy, which, it helped, but it's still.
It's not.
It's not.
It's never going to be the same.
It's never. It's never.
Well, I mean, especially as a catcher, like
yeah,
tons of pressure on your knees every play, all the time.
Yeah, consistently, just like it's that movement, and finally just gave out.
Is it something that still bothers you now?
Oh yeah.
Does it affect your play?
Not really. It's more after,
Mm-hmm.
and then the caring after. It's like a pain.
So you have to do a lot of like rehab, prehab
Yeah.
before each and every game.
Yeah.
Before and after.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's tough,
It's
dude.
a lot. Yeah, and then my back on top of it. It's just like.
What's wrong with your back?
Bulging disc.
Aren't you like 17?
I'm 17 and I have a bulging disc.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't.
And that's from playing softball?
It's from playing. Yeah, it's from swinging.
Really?
Yeah, my doctor said I'm too strong for my own body. That's literally his words. And when he said that, I was like that's so dumb. But I mean, I guess he just said that when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't affect me because I like playing. Obviously, I wasn't as strong. But then I started lifting more and getting stronger, and I'm at like my max like strength right now, I guess. And well, not really, but you know, it's just like at a point where it's too much for my body,
Mm-hmm.
and I just did too much swinging, and it just.
He didn't say there was anything you could do to like balance out the strength of the rest of your body to manage it?
I mean, there's no fixing. I can like do strengthening like in my core and all
Mhm.
that, but there's no really like making it go away.
Well, I know with disc issues, I have my own disc issues.
Yeah.
I have family members with disc issues. There's really there is no going back.
Yeah,
You can
no.
have surgery, which can mitigate some of the problems,
Yeah.
but there really aren't. There's not a lot you can do once it's already a problem. So is this something that you expect to be an issue for your life?
Oh yeah,
or-
yeah. It's basically we said it's gonna be there all my life, and I just have to find things that help it in a way.
Mhm.
There's no really like fixing it.
Yeah.
It's just.
Does it
accommodating for
does it
things.
impede your daily life? Like, is it something?
yeah.
But not just not just your daily
No,
softball life, but like
yeah,
every day.
life, yeah, like I'll be sitting in class and it's just like bugging me. I'll have to stand up, you know.
Mhm.
Standing up hurts it, so it's just like I can't do much. And then just like walking around or like I'll get up from bed, it'll be stiff.
Yeah.
You know, it's always there, but it's obviously worse when I'm playing, you know.
Yeah,
But
I do.
yeah.
I can sympathize. I have
Yeah.
I have similar issues. I mean, obviously I'm twice your age, but
Yeah.
I've definitely had problems when I was younger, like nagging injuries, things that like there were no fix for. It
Yeah.
was you played with it, it hurt.
Yeah.
You iced it when you were done, and you hoped it felt as good as possible. It's one of those things where you could probably make it worse,
Yeah.
but
There's no going back.
yeah, at
There's
this
no-
point,
yeah.
it's if you want to play, it's gonna hurt, and well, I guess for you, it's kind of gonna hurt either way.
Oh, yeah.
So, would you say? I think it's interesting because I don't know if you told people when they started playing sports that they were going to have this lifelong injury,
Yeah.
if they would still do it.
Yeah.
I think so. I think a lot of us would
Oh yeah.
because we love to play and we're competitors and we're like, nah, it's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
But it does. So for you, do you regret the amount of time you spent playing softball, considering you have these nagging injuries now?
Yes and no, because it basically like built my life, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like my life kind of revolves around softball. So like that part I don't regret. It's just like the whole injuries, and I'm gonna have to live with it like
Yeah.
basically the rest of my life, you know. But there's just I like it for the memories it makes, but then the toll on your body is the reason I would regret
Sure.
it. Right? It's just.
I mean, you have your friends, you have your experiences.
Yeah, exactly. And you build like long-term relationships with teammates, coaches, and all that. So that I wouldn't regret, but just the injuries, they kind of hold you back and make you question. You know?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think so many people, I think outside of athletics, look at athletes and think, you know, you're in great shape, you're super strong, you're very skilled at this whatever you might be skilled at, and they're envious. But it's the other half, the other part of it they don't see, which
Exactly.
is all of the, you know, body maintenance work, all of the pain that you go through. And I know for me, you know, I played baseball when I was younger. I played catcher. Like it's brutal. Like
Oh, yeah.
to play to play the sport,
Yeah.
softball, baseball, whatever, it's tough enough as it is. But
Oh, yeah.
you play, in my opinion, the toughest position.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in baseball, they always used to call the catcher's gear the tools of ignorance. Like
Yeah.
it really is. You know, you're sacrificing your body on
Yeah.
every
Oh, yeah.
pitch.
Definitely, yeah.
And softball's no joke, man.
Yeah,
I
it's
actually, personally, I played fast pitch softball a little bit, and I always had more fun playing fast pitch than I did playing baseball.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just 'cause it's a faster game.
Yeah, it is.
But I know like the toll that it takes on your body, and I don't think other people always grasp like the trade-off.
Yeah,
where it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
I love to play. It's
Yeah.
what helped me become who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it debilitated me in a lot
Mm-hmm.
of ways.
Yeah, yeah, and then it affects like your normal life too. You know, like I love playing. Obviously, it's just like what it has done to my body, especially as a catcher.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. And like like you said, people don't see it. And I'm out here playing like the hardest I can, and like I look like I'm fine, and then people don't like realize how much pain I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I still.
That's another thing for athletes is I mean, I can speak for myself. I think I speak for most people, most athletes when I say we're trained to mask our pain.
Mm-hmm.
You're trained to disguise the discomfort that you're in because one, you don't want to give your opponents an edge.
Mm-hmm.
You're competing against your opponent, but also everyone on your team. You know, it's a weird environment being on a team because you're all working together towards the same goal, but there's also people on your team who are actively wanting your spot, trying to take your spot.
Exactly, yeah.
And so you don't want to, you know, the way I would look at it, the way I have looked at it as an athlete is you don't want to show weakness.
Yeah.
You don't want to admit weakness. You don't want to admit pain.
Yeah.
And so you just keep playing through it. And that's how I think a lot of injuries get worse.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And something that I've talked to other athletes about is the pressure to play when you're injured.
Yeah.
Whether it be expectations for your team or like there's a big game or you want to do, you know, your own personal expectations.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like a competition. I feel like for me, it's more of a competition with myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it just, like injuries that I fight myself for. Like I know I'm in pain, but I'm going to tell myself that I'm like fine and I can play. Not even because like, I know there's people that obviously want my position and there's the other team that wants to win, but it's more like a mindset with myself, like a mind game I have to play with myself.
Yeah.
And it's just like I know I'm hurting and I'm going to accept it, but I'm also going to be stubborn about it and I'm just going to, you know, I feel like it's more a competition with myself.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the competitiveness that I mean, for me, whether it be playing sports or, you know, a board game or literally anything, it could be a foot race, whatever. Like, I want to win.
Yeah,
I'm going to win.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
my mindset.
Yeah.
And I think most athletes are, at heart, really hard competitors.
Oh,
and
yeah.
whether or not you're born that way or you're conditioned to do that coming up playing sports, there's nothing that's really going to stop me.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, like, when I was younger, you were going to have to break me in half to get me off the field because I didn't want to stop.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just being demented or super dedicated to your sport. I feel like it's kind of a two-way thing. Like it's both admirable that you're willing to give it all for your team and your competitive nature, but it's also a little crazy. Actually, it's a lot crazy.
It's very.
Yeah, but I don't think people who I think anyone who is an athlete and who has competed at a really high level and is a competitor has felt that same thing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's just who we are.
Yeah.
So, and it's to our detriment. I mean, I have issues, you know, health issues now that stem back from just playing, and probably a unwillingness to stop playing now.
Yeah.
I still like to play sports. You know, for me, I coach soccer. I play soccer regularly. It's not the best thing for me to do, but I love to do it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a weird balance and trade-off between knowing it's not healthy for us, but also knowing like this is what I love to do.
Exactly,
It's what makes me happy, and I want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's no there's like a balance there. Like, you know you shouldn't be, but you love playing it, so you're going to, right? So it's just, you can't hold back. It's just, you just go all or like nothing. In a way.
I feel like most people are just like, I'm going to play until I can't
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly.
Because once I can't play, once I physically can't do it or whatever, there are alternatives that I'll find.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
yeah. And then there's just like the acceptance too. Like once you can't, you're just like, okay, I can't. But you know, like if you're hurt and you can still play, you're going to play.
right.
But like once it's done, you're just like, okay, just kind of accept it.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that because I feel like there's a lot of like older coaches who will look at younger generations and be like, oh, they're soft, or it's a different generation of kids and they're coached a different way and the expectations are different, and they'll rest. They're more apt to say I'm injured or I'm not going to play today. I mean, I deal with it with kids that I coach where they'll tell me, oh, I'm not available because of this, and it's just like I respect what they say, but I know there's no way I would ever have used that as an excuse that would ever have kept me out. So it's interesting for me to hear someone say like, oh no, there's literally nothing that could stop me from playing.
No. I mean, I feel like this generation, there is athletes that are very soft. I know personally, I've seen it, but I'm the type of person that's going to be stubborn with myself and with my coach. And it's not because I want to get hurt. It's just, I don't want to, like, I don't know. I wouldn't say, like, set myself up for failure, but I don't want to accept the fact that, like, I have an injury and it's, like, going to stop me,
It's weird to say that people are soft for, like, paying attention to their injuries and like respecting them and trying to get better. It's not that. I feel like, I don't know. I wonder sometimes, like, if I think a lot of athletes do have like addictive personalities. Yeah. And it's just like, I'm addicted to my sport. I can't, like, regardless of what it's doing to me, I'm not going to stop. Yeah. And I don't know. It's just, I see it a lot in a lot of different kids where they're like, I'm like, aren't you in pain right now? They're like, yeah. And
yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. It's just, I feel like it's an interesting thing that a lot of us share. Yeah. It's a unique attribute that runs through athletes.
Yeah. I think for the most part, it's like, I say 90% of athletes are this way.
So despite having these consistent injuries, you're still looking to play in college.
Yeah. Just for the experience, and just, I love the sport. I've been playing since I was tiny, maybe 2. So it's always been a part of my life. And I feel like if it weren't for like softball, I'd be like a bland person, like I feel like it like built me as a person. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, I see it like it built my personality. And I feel like if I didn't play, I wouldn't be like where I am right now. I just, like, my life would be a lot different. So kind of like it's one of those things that, like, I know I'm gonna have to stop playing one day, and like I need to accept it, but I also like I want to play until I can't, and then until like it's kind of like the dead end for me. Yeah. Once I start my career and all that.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned, you said before, you describe softball as a dead-end sport because there really isn't. There are opportunities to play professionally, but they're not lucrative. They're not something that a lot of people do as a profession.
Yeah, exactly.
There's the national team. There are professional teams, but it's more like you're more of a performer than a player.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've come to terms with the fact that, like, when you're done in college, that'll be the end of it. Yeah. And hopefully, for your sake, I hope it ends on your terms rather than injury ending it. That's something we talked with a lot of people about, is injury ending their career for them. Yeah. So I'm hopeful that you'll be able to end it on your terms. Yeah. One thing that I talk to a lot of people about is your identity, and you've already talked about how you'd be different. You feel like you wouldn't be you without having softball in your life. Kind of, maybe not to jump all the way forward to when your softball career is over, but you clearly identify yourself as an athlete and a softball player. Yeah. Have you thought about what you're going to do when that's no longer your identity, or how you're going to identify when that's no longer who you are?
Probably just based off of like my career, honestly. Like, yeah, because like right now it's like, I feel like high school, like in like an athlete's perspective, like you revolve around your sport in high school especially, but then like once it ends, it's kind of just your whatever you have, like your career and all that, family. It's just you kind of have to rebuild your life again, in a way, because I've built up all the way until this point with softball, so it's kind of like a reset, and it's like starting your life new in a way. Yeah. Right. It just. Yeah, that's how, it just whatever happens, that's how I'll determine.
Yeah. No, I know people who play sports, they all, I feel like you'll always identify yourself as an athlete. Yeah. And a lot of people in that position, when they can't play anymore, they coach. Yeah. That's what I did. So I can sympathize with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it really just depends on where your life takes you.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I want to get in a career that revolves around sports too. So I'd be, still in that athlete mindset, like athletic mindset,
Still in the environment.
Yeah, exactly. Which I want to be because I love like just sports in general.
Yeah.
So it would be along the same lines. It just would be a different time setting, all that.
So you love playing sports. I assume you love watching sports.
Oh yeah.
Were you always a softball player? Did you ever try anything different?
Yeah, I did a lot. There was a time where I did softball, I did dance, I did soccer, jiu-jitsu. I wanted to experience everything. So I think I also did swim. I've always had that competitive mindset.
Yeah.
So I was like, might as well do everything. So it was just, I would go from one practice to another practice, and it was like never ending. Like I wouldn't stop, like full weeks, everything. So I just, it's an experience in a way.
But nothing stuck.
No, softball did.
Well, I mean, obviously.
Yeah, but I had my moment where I was like, I don't really want to play softball anymore. It was
Really?
maybe like a 2-year gap in that moment where I was doing everything else too, and softball was a lot. So I stuck to everything else. I did everything else. And then once I did everything, I figured out, like, okay, softball is, like, my sport. Like, my family, close family revolves around baseball, we're a big baseball family. And I was like, you know what, it's what I started with. It's what I love. I, built the love up. And, venturing off into other, sports or, activities made me realize that, and it stuck. And I was like, I had my, moment where I experienced other things, but I came back to it and, just built myself up as an athlete to become better.
Yeah. I think that for a lot of people, they give something up that they love because they get burnt out.
Oh, yeah.
You get burnt out on it, and then you kind of find your love for it again.
Yeah, exactly.
I know I've talked to other, I coach a lot of goalkeepers, and some of them are softball players as well. There's a lot of crossover there. And they'll tell me, what they have to do. It's like, oh, I have a 6-hour practice today. I was like, what do you do for 6 hours?
I know, it's insane.
Yeah, so I can see how the burnout would happen.
Yeah.
What was it that brought you back to softball? If you really took a 2-year gap from playing.
I think it's from 10 to 12ish maybe. But it was just, I think because my parents started me young, and it was just a lot. It was tournaments every weekend, practice 2-3 times a week, long practices, just the coaches. I feel like I'm not the type of person that doesn't like to listen, but when you're that young, you don't want a coach telling you oh, go do this, go do that.
Not for 6 hours straight.
Yeah, no, and they're long, and then you see them on weekends, and you don't get to I'm not saying I didn't experience a childhood, but it wasn't as much as I wanted to do.
No, your childhood's completely consumed by softball.
Yeah, exactly. And then it just, that was where my life was just kind of it was all softball, which, I mean, it was fine. And then I had, I just took the gap, and then I was like, you know what, I miss it. I miss the tournaments. I miss, my teammates. I miss, just being in the environment of, a softball field.
Yeah.
And I kind of once I got older, I matured and realized the sport, it is a lot, but it's something I love doing, and it's one of those things that not that I have to put up with it, it's just I enjoy putting up with it.
Yeah.
It's
a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's something that I come back to with a lot of people is they enjoy being challenged, they enjoy testing themselves, they enjoy the competitive aspect.
Yeah.
But I know youth sports now is crazy. You usually, I think it's better to play a multitude of sports.
Yeah.
You really round out your physicality, round out your abilities. You find what you're best at, and a lot of times things that you learn in some sports carry over to others.
Oh yeah.
But the reality of it now is whether you play, club soccer or playing, travel softball, travel baseball,
Yeah.
AAU basketball. I mean, it is all your sport all the time.
Yeah.
Then there is no off season. Like that's the crazy thing now is like, there is technically, but not really,
No.
because you're always doing private lessons. You're always working on your game. There is no break.
Yeah.
And vacations now are spent at tournaments.
Yep.
It's like, oh, where are we going this weekend? It's like, oh, we have a tournament down in wherever it might
exactly.
be.
Yeah, and they're far.
Yeah, they're all over the place. They're out of state.
Yeah.
It becomes, it's something I need to talk to parents about too, because it becomes the identity of your family.
Yeah.
It's what you do as a family.
Yeah,
like when I was
exactly.
younger, we did other things.
Yeah.
Like obviously I was playing sports all the time, but it wasn't
yeah.
all consuming. So it's interesting to hear that by like 10 years old, you're
yeah.
already burnt out on it.
Yeah.
And you want to go try different things. You want to do different stuff. You want to just be a kid
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
I think it's hard sometimes for people to understand, for non-athletes to understand the amount of time and dedication and sacrifice that goes into wanting to be great at a sport.
Exactly.
And there are a ton of people who do all of that and are still not great. They still don't achieve their goals. It's kind of disappointing.
Or I would say even like just achieve like other people's expectations, Like there's always that mark you want to reach to like make your parents happy, make your coaches happy, and it's like that's along the lines of like getting burnt out, like you want to make people happy, like you want to like exceed their expectations and you want to go even further, and it's just like it's a lot, especially on someone that young, like 10 years old. It's a lot, and it's just like you want to make them proud, but it's just I feel like it's a lot of pressure, especially because it's put in kids' minds so young,
I mean, I see parents on side. I mean, I coach soccer, obviously. I see parents on sidelines who are losing their mind. And I'm like, your kid's 8, by the way.
No, literally.
It's crazy to me. Like, obviously, you want to support your kid. You're kind of living vicariously through them. I would imagine a lot of parents are former athletes themselves, and so they also have that competitive drive. And you want to see your kid succeed, which I totally understand. But I feel like we've given up some of the development in lieu of trying to win all the time.
Yeah.
And for me, youth sports is more about, it should be about development, not only as athletes, but as people.
Yeah.
And that's something that I always come back to. I coach goalkeepers. It's a very humbling position. Catcher, very humbling position.
Yeah.
You've learned a lot about yourself and about resiliency and about life and how to take one in the chest and keep going. You know what I mean? Like, take a foul ball off the mask, you got to throw it back to the pitcher and squat down again. Like, it's not easy to do that. But I think it hardens you a little bit for some of the things that are going to come later in life. You're going to take some lumps where it's, for other people, it might be really devastating. And for you, you're kind of like, I know how to roll with this because I spent my entire childhood, grinding.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's just, I feel, sports, it's just, when you start so young, it teaches you a lot, not even about the sport, it's all life lessons. I look at everything in like a game as like just lessons overall. Like I mess up, I'm gonna mess up in life, but learn from it, get better, right? It's just, but I feel like that's one of the benefits of starting young. It teaches you a lot, but then at the same time, it's just a lot.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I've learned things. I always try to illustrate some of the life lessons I learned to my athletes. And it's funny, like there are a lot of things that I've learned about being a coach that I didn't realize that I learned until I became a coach, where I was like, oh, I don't want to be like that coach that I had. That coach that I had might have been able to give me instruction and might have been able to make me better on a skill set level. But they didn't make me better as a player because I was afraid of them or I didn't respect them. I just feared them. I was more concerned with not making a mistake in front of them than actually learning from them.
Exactly.
I was more focused on meeting their expectations than actually enjoying myself and finding joy in what I was doing, which would have helped me achieve those expectations.
Yeah.
And so it's funny to me. I've learned a lot, not only from sports, but also the people, the relationships you garner, and the fact that there are people that I look back and I can say, like, they were good coaches, but they weren't good for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's always those coaches that, like, in a way, they push you, but not to, like, they don't push you in the places that you need to be pushed, you know? Like, they can push you to be a better player. Like, obviously, you can, it's, like, in a skill, like, kind of way, but then there's, like, they, like, in a way, build you up to break you down, you know? Because they make you good players, but then at the same time, they're over here yelling at you, you know, telling you things you don't want to hear, and it just kind of, like, breaks you down as a player, and then you don't enjoy what you're doing, you know. And I feel like just there's also those coaches that, like, tell you, like, oh yeah, go out and have fun, you know. And then I feel like just having fun and enjoying your sport, that's what makes you do better and want to play more.
True.
You know, it's
funny though. I feel like for myself, I can always push players harder and I can get more out of them if they trust me.
Yeah.
And that trust is earned, and I have to work with them, and there are times where I have to treat them a specific way and make sure that they're having a good time. But at some point, if they want to achieve a certain level, there is a turning point where the coach-player relationship is going to get more intense. And I feel like the players that I've had the most success with are the ones that trust me the most, but that trust is earned. And for me as a player, the coaches that pushed me the hardest, I didn't trust. And I felt like while that might have worked for some players, for me, I was more concerned with failing in front of them than I was in actually succeeding. And I felt like that held me back. And I think has colored my perspective as a coach for my players.
No, I had one of those coaches where it's just like he would yell at girls and, you know, like, be hard on them, and, like, I was the type of player that would take it, and, like, I used it as a way to make me better. But then I see some of my teammates and it completely, like, tore them apart, and it's just like I had trust in that coach, you know, like, obviously I know he was hard on me, but I know it's for a good reason. I know it was because he knew I had potential. Right. So it's just, I think it's like the way you take it too.
I think it's them sometimes explaining it to you. Did the coach ever tell you, hey, you have potential and this is why I'm hard on you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I think for a lot of players, you know, a coach might push and push and push and not tell you why. And I think that's sometimes hard. And then a coach will just be like, you know, I've seen it, like, them just verbally brutalize someone where it's like you'll never be anything. Like, and some people that either destroys them or it puts them on a path where they're like the most motivated person ever.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's just a way that an athlete can take that. You know, it's
knowing your athletes.
Exactly. Yeah. So
it's just, for me, it's a lot of those interactions and relationships, things that I remember to this day, like moments in my sports life. I remember less like individual plays, or there are things that I remember, but it's a lot of those interactions, whether it be my teammates or my coaches, some for the good, some for the really, really bad. So it's something for me as a coach that I try and keep in mind, is that what might be a fleeting moment for me saying something to a player might be something that will stick in their memory forever. Like it could be a core memory for them where, you know, I had a player who I love and who trusts me implicitly, who I've really helped to get better, tell me like, oh yeah, you You ripped me when I was 12 years old. I've never
Yeah.
forgotten it. And I was like, I don't remember that moment, but clearly you do.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes those things you need to hear to kind of remind you, like, oh, they're just kids, man.
Yeah.
Like,
No, yeah.
I think that's another thing we were talking about with parents. Sometimes you forget that they're just kids.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, the amount of times I've had tournaments where I do bad and I'll have my mom like, oh, you're not getting fed. Like, you're not eating on the way. There's always those moments. And, you know, it's just like, obviously she was kidding, but, you know, there's that point where it's just, it'd be hard on, like, athletes as kids, but at the same time, like, trust them and, like, what they want to do, you know, and know that they're trying to build up to your expectations.
Yeah, I think building that communication and giving, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to do something like this.
Yeah.
Is to give people like yourself a platform to actually say these things and advocate for themselves and for other people. Just be like, hey, you know, part of being an athlete when you're younger is a lot of times shutting your mouth.
Oh, yeah.
And it's difficult sometimes when you have something to say or when you want to advocate for yourself, but you're in a position where you're dealing with someone of authority who you respect a lot of times, and you don't want to disrespect them. And so your job, you know, your job at the time is to, you know, be quiet and play your position or whatever it might be. Do what they ask you to do.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes hard to do that. So I try to give kids an opportunity to speak their mind and to give me feedback, and I ask for it.
Yeah.
I want to create an environment where they feel comfortable. I don't want to, you know, I'm not opening them up to complain, but I want to give them the opportunity to be free with what they want to say. And that's another reason why I want to do this. I think it's important for young athletes to have a platform to speak their mind and to speak about the things that they go through and both the successes and the defeats and the difficulties and the things they love and also the things that they hate. I mean, one of the big things that I like to talk about with athletes is like what your sport gives you, but also what it takes away, which we've touched on both. It's given you so much, but also it's stealing your health a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's difficult sometimes to balance that, but we do because we're athletes.
Yeah, you just find it. You find that like middle point where you're just like, okay, I'll deal with it, but then at the same time, I know it's gonna affect me, right?
But I wonder if that's just we've just been conditioned that way because we started so young.
Yeah.
Like I really wonder if someone could present you with the reality of like this is going to be your life after you're finished playing. Would you take it?
Yeah.
You know, this is everything that you get to do.
Yeah.
You get to build all the friendships. You get to build, you know, to build your skill set and become this person. But is it worth it in the long run?
Yeah. Well, I think if you were to ask like just a regular person, they wouldn't take it. But if you have the mindset that like we have right now, I would take it in a heartbeat. I know that's a lot, but
I feel like there are people who don't play sports who think you're crazy.
Yeah.
And everybody who does play knows exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. But I mean, my thing, what can you do? You know, you just kind of deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, accept it.
You play because you love it, and
Yeah.
you take what comes with it.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't take anything back.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, I did it. Obviously there's consequences,
Sure.
right? But, I mean, I love playing, and it holds me back, but it's not going to hold me back, in a way, right?
Yeah.
You get it? Yeah. But, I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's a lot, and it messes with, especially injuries, it messes with you.
Yeah.
But it builds you up as a person.
How do you think you're, I guess, dealing with your injuries on a daily basis and knowing that despite feeling pain, you're not going to stop playing? How do you think that's affected you, like, on a mental level?
It's affected me a lot, honestly. Like, especially when I first, like, had to accept the fact that I was injured. It's just, I would go out on the field and it was like a failure after a failure, you know? It's just, it messes you up. And I reached, like, there was this point right after my injury, like my back, and it was like I wasn't, like, reaching the level that I knew I could reach. So I was I'm done with this. Like, after I'm not playing college, like, I don't, like, plan on going anywhere. They're like, I might just quit right now, you know? And it got so bad to the point where I was like, I'm just going to go to the Marines. Like, I was like, it messed with me, and I would go home and I would, like, beat myself up over not performing well in the sport that I know I could perform well in.
Yeah.
You know, and it, like, tears you down in a way. And it's just, like, I would, like, after hearing that, either I quit or play and be in pain, it's a lot on the mental, like, on your mental health.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, I had to accept it, but it caused me to, like, be in this state where I just, like, I didn't want to do anything. You know, I wasn't doing good in school. It messed with my grades. It, like, messed with my, like, the ability in the sport that I knew I was able to do. You know, like, I was, like, one injury caused, like, everything just to go downhill. And it's just, it shouldn't have to be that way, right? Yeah. But, like, especially for athletes, like, one injury is one injury. Like, that's what not normal people, but, like, people that don't play sports would say. Like, an injury is an injury, but then you feel like you're failing a lot of people, and especially yourself. You know, you feel like, what could I have done differently to not be at this point right now? Yeah. You know, and it just, it caused, like, just injury after injury, it causes a lot of, like, I would say, like, defeat in myself. You know, and I knew I had to accept it, but I couldn't, so I just let it take over. Yeah. You know, it was hard, and I just had to build myself back up. You know, it was hard, but I just kind of reached that point where I was like, I know I'm injured, but I know I can push myself, and I know this injury could push me to be a better player. You know, I could work harder, you know, go to therapy, train more, like, strengthen myself, and it would cause me to be better. And I mean, as long as you have that mindset, right? Because there's people that will let it take over, like, I don't know how to explain it, but there's, like, like, a type of depression with, like, injuries. Sure. Right? So, like, it causes you to be, like, depressed. And I feel like I was in that state. And there's those athletes that, like, aren't, like, mentally strong, and they'll let it take over, you know? But I didn't want to reach that level. I wanted to, like, compete with myself and know that I, like, can overcome it.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is self-doubt. And I think even athletes who are super mentally strong, there are moments where you're unable to do the things that you've always been able to do. Yeah. And it's devastating. Not being able to perform in a way that you know you can or you know you could, I think, is one of those things. It's when I talk to a lot of athletes that have been injured, there's questions of, will I ever be the same? Or there's oftentimes the realization of, I will never be the same. And that carries a lot of weight because you're a different person at that point. Yeah. And something that you've defined yourself as being able to do for so long, that is the core of what defines you. It's like, I am this thing because I can do this thing. It's like, well, what happens to you when you can't do it anymore? There is a lot of self-doubt that creeps in. Yeah. And like you said, athletes face depression all the time, and a lot of it stems from performance. A lot of it stems from not meeting your own personal expectations. It stems from a number of different areas, but one thing that I think is consistent through all of them is it stems from injuries. Because it removes you from your community. You know, you might not see your teammates as much. You might feel like you're on the outs because you were in the starting lineup and you're not anymore. You know, your coach might look at you a different way because they know what they used to ask you to do, you're not capable of doing anymore. And you start to question yourself, and it's like, is this even worth it for me to do? Yeah. Like, who am I even if I can't do the things that if I hit home runs and I can't do that anymore, or if I can't crouch down behind the plate, like, what am I as a player?
Exactly, yeah.
I think it's something that all athletes at some point deal with. I think everybody gets injured in some way, shape, or form at some point.
Yeah.
And you can be mentally strong, and I think you would consider yourself mentally strong, but it doesn't mean that it won't affect you.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many factors that go into being really great at what you do and performing really well consistently.
Yeah.
I think everybody can perform well sometimes.
Yeah.
But to be able to perform well and perform to exceed expectations, to meet your expectations, to perform at a super high level consistently is the difference between good and great.
Yeah.
And that expectation of consistent, really high level performance is already difficult enough.
Yeah.
And it's something that I don't think a lot of people really think. I don't think a lot of athletes even think about, especially when you play really well all the time.
Yeah.
You're not concerned about it. You go out and you do what you do, and you're like, this is me. This is how I play. I'm great. Like, this is what I do. And then something will happen. You know, you make a big mistake, or you get an injury, or whatever it might be. You change teams, or you get a new coach who doesn't inspire you the same way, or somebody else joins your team and they're a better player than you are, and you have to take a seat behind them. It's the self-doubt creeps in.
Yeah.
And once that's there, it's difficult to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And so I think even those who are mentally strong, presented with certain situations, it can be very defeating. Like you said, it feels like defeat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I feel like all of those factors, like, they're just belittling in a way. Like, there's no really, like, you just feel like you were so high up and now you're just kind of down. And it's always after, too. Like, I know right now my coach, he is careful with me in a way. And I feel like I'm like, I can do whatever. Like, you know, obviously I'm afraid of getting injured again, but it's like, I don't want him to see me as an injured, like athlete, you know? Like, I'm a starter and I want to keep it that way, and I don't want him to see me differently, you know? Like, I'm still the same athlete I was. Obviously, I'm injured and there's things that'll hurt me, but I'm, like, still the same. I can become capable of what I was able to do before my injury, you know?
I think another reason why I think athletes hide injuries is they don't want people to see them differently.
Yeah.
It's a heavy thing that you have to deal with, and it's an inevitability that you'll deal with it at some point. And some people are able to be injured and come back and be better than ever, or get back to where they were, and some people are just never the same.
Yeah, completely let it tear them down.
And I think it affects people differently, but it is something that I think is universal for athletes, where it's at some point you're gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that? And I think conversations like this are important, because there really is no blueprint as to how to deal with being someone who all of a sudden can't do what they have always been able to do, and what they love to do, and what defines them. And so I appreciate you being open about everything, because it's not easy to admit that it affected you more on more than just a physical level.
Yeah. I think in every aspect of my life, it just kind of, it like brings you down in a way. It brought me down. You know?
Well, you don't even realize it sometimes, where it's like you're not socializing the same you were before. You're kind of being reclusive. All of a sudden, you're not focused in class. You know, it's and it can happen in your everyday life too. It's like you have a job, your performance is slipping, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It can really affect you in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, but you just kind of, either you let it continue doing that, or you just accept it and become better at those things, you know? Like, it pushes you. You know, I feel like my injury pushed me. Well, injuries, they pushed me to become better in, like, every aspect of my life. You know, like, especially school, because education is important to me. And I knew it was all slipping away. So I was like, I'm not gonna let this happen, you know, like I need to come better. And then softball was next, you know, I need to push myself because I know I can get to where I was and even more, you know. But
that's good. You took a really terrible situation and you turned it for the positive.
Yeah.
Like kind of a wake-up call that you needed to make sure that you took care of business in the classroom because physically you weren't always going to be able to do this, but your education is paramount. It's very important.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Well, I appreciate you being so open about everything.
Of course.
As always, I like to wrap up every episode with a piece of advice from my guest. So if you had a piece of advice for anybody kind of either dealing with what you're dealing with or who has similar aspirations or expectations for you, or it doesn't have to be softball specific, but any piece of advice for student athletes out there.
I would say don't be afraid to fail in a way. Like don't let other people's expectations determine. It's for every piece of every part of your life. Like don't try to reach other people's expectations. Like make goals for yourself and reach your goals. You know, don't try to make other people happy. You know, just do it for yourself. You know, keep that mindset that it's always gonna be for yourself because you're all you really have is yourself. You know, and everything you do is for yourself. So other people's opinions and what other people expect from you, in the end, it doesn't really matter. You know, it's
good, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we get wrapped up in what our parents or our coaches or our teammates or friends, whatever, want from us. And we forget what we want.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all for yourself, right?
Yeah. Love it, dude.
Yep.
Thanks so much.
Of course.
Good job, Kay.
Thanks.
Huge thank you once again to our guest Kaylee Rodriguez, our producer Malin Blade, and all the big dogs listening. Tune in to our next episode for more Athletes Unleashed. Later, homies.